The popular promise of permaculture is the food forest, the idea that you plant once and let nature provide an effortless harvest for decades. Most annual vegetables, like tomatoes or corn, require the opposite. They demand a repetitive, high-labor cycle of tilling, seeding, and weeding every single spring before they die off in the winter. Perennials have a physiological advantage. Because they survive the winter, they can grow up to 4 times the root mass of an annual crop, allowing them to pull deep water during droughts and continuously build soil health. This graph illustrates the central trade-off of perennial gardening. You are trading delayed gratification for a compounding return on your investment. The annual line spikes every spring, but the perennial line demands a massive labor hit in year 1 before dropping near 0 by year 3. That year 1 spike hides 2 significant upfront costs. First, you face a waiting period of up to 3 years before your first harvest. Second, you are making a permanent commitment of your garden's square footage. To find the best options for your yard, we are analyzing 5 distinct perennials to measure their upfront effort and space requirements against their lifetime yield. Agricultural sustainability relies on plant biology, but it also depends on whether the gardener can afford the initial hit to their time and space. This tracking matrix evaluates our plants across 3 metrics: time to first harvest, space requirement, and lifespan. Asparagus is a classic long-term investment. You rarely start these from seed. Instead, you plant dormant 1 to 2-year-old root crowns. Even with those crowns, you face a rigid 2 to 3-year establishment phase. You must avoid harvesting entirely during this time to let the root system build up its energy reserves. The wait pays off with reliable spring harvests for up to 20 years from a single planting. Rhubarb offers a similar timeline. It is a virtually indestructible plant that can thrive in the coldest climates and survive for decades. The trade-off is spatial. A single rhubarb plant requires a permanent 5-foot wide footprint and another 1 to 2-year establishment period before you can start picking stalks. While it requires almost 0 ongoing maintenance, keep in mind that you are dedicating a massive amount of garden real estate to a specialized dessert ingredient rather than a caloric staple. Asparagus and rhubarb prove that patience pays off, provided you have the permanent square footage to sacrifice for them. Some perennials challenge the plant and forget rule with demanding propagation needs or aggressive growth habits. The artichoke is a tender Mediterranean perennial that naturally fails to flower in colder climates. To get a harvest in the north, you have to use a process called vernalization. This involves starting seeds indoors for 12 weeks and then giving seedlings 10 consecutive days of cold exposure to trick them into fruiting in their first season. The return on that precise temperature micromanagement is a relatively low-calorie, low-volume harvest of just a few flower buds per plant. The Egyptian walking onion sits at the opposite end of the spectrum. It is an aggressive survivor, immune even to the toxic juglone produced by black walnut trees. It propagates by growing heavy bulbils at the top of its stalks. Eventually, the plant flops over, and where the bulbils touch the soil, they send out new roots and start a fresh clump. While it provides a permanent, zero-effort supply of onions, you must aggressively harvest or cull the plants to prevent them from walking over your entire garden. A plant operating on autopilot creates its own kind of work if you don't manage its natural spreading. Caneberries, like raspberries and blackberries, act as structural, landscape-level anchors that provide decades of production. Backyard berries offer a high financial return on investment by replacing expensive store-bought fruit with a reliable, heavy harvest. To keep that yield high, you must commit to the annual chore of pruning away spent canes and maintaining heavy layers of mulch. Neglecting these bushes leads to unproductive, thorny thickets that harbor disease and eventually stop fruiting. This table from the Orchard Project shows how managed shrubs like raspberries function as vital understory layers in a food forest, providing both food and ecosystem services. Caneberries offer the ideal perennial compromise, a high-value financial return in exchange for a moderate, predictable annual chore. This flowchart matches specific plants to individual gardening lifestyles. Success depends on trading flexibility for stability based on your specific constraints. For the space-constrained gardener, massive footprint crops like rhubarb and asparagus should be avoided. Walking onions and vertically trellised berries are your best options to maximize caloric and financial yield per square foot. If you are short on time, your strategy is to push through the friction of the initial establishment phase. Asparagus and rhubarb are ideal here. Their 20-year lifespans of zero-labor harvests perfectly suit a set-and-forget lifestyle. Those in harsh, cold climates should prioritize natural survivors rather than fighting the environment. Stick to hardy berries and rhubarb. The high labor requirements of artichokes are better suited for gardeners looking for an active science experiment. A successful perennial system earns its true return at the intersection of total yield, available space, and your personal budget for time and patience.